Hello. Thank you for joining us for our discussion on how to go from fragmented to connected when building a modern marketing stack. My name is Amit Desai. Bonjour, moi je suis Amit Desai, and I am a director of professional services here at Munvo. It's my pleasure to moderate today's discussion. Now, onto the topic at hand, building a modern marketing stack. Research from McKinsey shows that the number of marketing technology tools, or MarTech for short, have more than doubled over the past 6 years to almost 15,000 tools available and leading the MarTech industry to be valued at over $215 billion by 2027. This may come as a shock to some, but for many of you joining us whose teams are working day in, day out with MarTech, this isn't surprising. There are more tools than ever for business and technology leaders to choose from, and building a cohesive MarTech stack has never been more challenging. That's where finding the right solutions to work with your existing strategy and MarTech stack becomes key. And I'm joined by two really smart colleagues with years and years of experience in MarTech to help shed some light and some insights on how to go from fragmented to connected when building a modern MarTech stack. It's my pleasure to introduce Mike Turner, Principal Business Advisor at SAS, an industry leader in analytics and insights, and Sean Memon, Director of Professional Services at Munvo, which specializes in MarTech solutions for over 20 years. Mike and Sean, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, let's jump right into the discussion. Mike, I'll start with you. What are some of the main challenges you've heard clients bring up when it comes to modern MarTech modernization?
Yeah, thanks, Amit. It's interesting. You mentioned there, 15,000 plus solutions out there now. And most organizations I get engaged with, really, you can narrow the problems down to a few key areas. Fragmented data, disconnected systems, makes it impossible for them to get to that sort of golden record, that single customer view. And often as not, you look at older organizations, that's because their tech stacks have grown organically, not necessarily strategically. So it's led to things like duplication of different functionality across different systems, different silos of data. How many Martechs have we come, Martech stacks have we come across where the first thing you need to do is move data into that tech system? And it means often as well, it's one of the causal reasons behind marketing and IT alignment being very weak. IT are challenged with, oh, here's yet another solution. Please go put this in for us. And then they've got to figure out how do they move data between system A, system B. How do they make it, how do they make it reconcile? How do they keep it in line? And that really drives disconnection through those three core elements of strategy, process, technology. So the modernization really, when we talk about modernization, we try to help people understand. The problem you've got, guys, is you're being campaign centric. You're looking at tools. You're looking at what does this tool do? What does that tool do? You're not being customer centric. To be customer centric, you've really got to think from that customer's perspective. Put the tools and the processes to one side for a minute, look at what the customer needs, and then look at aligning your tools and your tech towards it. So for me, my opening thought with this is always, if you've got a MarTech stack, it's got to help you. And to modernize, you've got to think about how do I centralize my data for orchestration and analytics? How do I bring business users closer to insight and then, through doing that, allow them to activate?
So, Sean, how about you?
What we've seen with our customers is, there's this legacy technology that is not integrated well, where the data is disconnected, where you've got different teams operating on different channels. And so it makes it hard to deliver the kind of integrated omni-channel experiences that customers are expecting today. But data is going to play a big role here. And as Mike mentioned, having a golden record of your customers, one that is available to all of your different systems in real time, helps orchestrate and coordinate messaging and offer delivery across all of these different channels. Right? Again, going back to what you mentioned, Amit, this 15,000 plus MarTech world that we live in today means that organizations oftentimes have multiple tools that can accomplish the same goals, And what that means is that they're overinvested and underutilized. And what this leads to is a marketing technology world within an organization where we've got brittle integrations. So we're duplicating rules across different channels, we're duplicating offer requirements across different tools. And what this leads to is multiple teams trying to achieve the same goals, multiple efforts being duplicated across different channels, across different tools, and there's no central decisioning, which means that it's very difficult to act on signals that are coming in for personalization or shifting our offers across all of our channels simultaneously. Now, to take a step back, where this really comes from is developing a customer-centric mindset across the whole organization. So marketing organizations are often very good at thinking about the customer first, but we need to take that mentality on across the whole organization. And that's from the data and analytics teams, the IT teams, through to the frontline staff, and of course, in marketing. And when we approach customer experiences holistically across the organizations, then organizations can start thinking about making the right investment in tools that allow them to synergize all of these various capabilities across all of these different teams that it now takes to deliver customer-centric marketing. And that includes delivering across email channels, web channels, inbound, call centers, contact centers, social media outbound, and so forth.
I think it's another. It's interesting what you're saying there, Sean. But there's another aspect I think we often forget when we engage with these clients. There are so many problems in the MarTech stacks, in the interconnectivity of them, in the integration of them. You're quite right; those are key problems. But if you come at it from the customer point of view, when we engage as customers with organizations, we have a level of expectation. We have a level that we expect an organization to respond to. We think back to what I was saying about organizations being trapped in a legacy of behaviors brought about by years of either poor investment or no investment in technology. How many signals are they missing from customers? Not just, not being able to process the ones they do get. How many are they missing altogether? How much damage is that doing to them in terms of surviving as a business? We've all got hundreds of stories about, high street names that were commonplace that have disappeared off the face of the earth. And I do worry with, 15,000 plus choices out there. It's like a child in a sweet shop. How do you know which one to pick? When to pick it? What's it going to do? Have I already eaten this before? It's a really tough world to quickly come to terms with.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where things like decision fatigue or the
Yeah,
the ability to have multiple choices to choose from, just leading to paralysis, really factors in.
yeah.
Amazing. Well, now that we've got an idea of some of the main market challenges that leaders are facing, Sean, what are some solutions you'd recommend, and how would you go about enabling these solutions?
So, we've talked about building a customer-centric mindset throughout the organization. And as Mike mentioned, getting the data house in order is kind of the key to driving all of this. And this has been a challenge that companies have had, historically over the last 15, 20 years, ever since we've been in the era of database marketing, is getting timely access to the right data. And today, with data technologies, the cloud data lakehouses, that problem is largely being solutioned. And over the last, 10, 15 years, we've seen a lot of MarTech solutions come in to play this role and solve this problem for marketing organizations within companies, in a piecemeal fashion. Now with cloud data lakehouses, we're able to solve that at an enterprise-wide level. And so what we'd recommend is for marketing organizations to leverage that cloud IT data strategy and tap into those customer data sources. And so the first step here is really to make sure that we're able to tap in to this, cloud data lakehouse technologies that enterprises are migrating to, and making sure as a marketing organization that our tools are able to leverage that data in near real time. From there, We want to make sure to be able to integrate that data into our models, right? Our propensity models, our lifetime models, our offer models, so that we can pivot our messaging should it not match what that customer's intent is signaling at that moment. We want to make sure that we have that data available for both segmentation as well. And so we want to make sure we're using data federation to these cloud data lakehouse systems and have everything, all of our marketing systems reading and writing from that data. From there, we want to make sure that we're able to activate these offers and those communications for our customers onto the right channels. And it's not only about offers these days, but it's also about the right communication. So, if we think of ourselves, if we're in a banking situation or financial situation, we all are focused on the cross sells, the upsells, the higher fee credit cards, the higher value checking accounts or savings accounts or the mortgages. But oftentimes, building brand trust can be meeting the customer where they are and meeting their needs where they are. And oftentimes, what this means is that we're educating our customers on how they can leverage our products most effectively. And so this orchestration layer, meets customers where they are, delivers the right communications for where they are, but also, as Amit, you alluded to before, fatigue management is huge. So if we are delivering inconsistent messages on different channels, and those channels today, they include email, SMS, push notifications on the outbound side, but on the inbound side, on the website or the mobile app, or even as customers are on social media or on YouTube and they're seeing ads from our brand. Are we delivering consistent messaging for that customer where they are and and meeting their needs today? And if we're delivering inconsistent messaging, as you alluded to, that is going to result in contact fatigue. And so we need a way to make sure that we're orchestrating that messaging in real time across all of these various channels. And as well from there, as a last step, is looking at real-time offer arbitration or real-time decisioning for what offers or communications we're going to show to customers. And again, all of this depends on having an integrated MarTech suite, reducing redundancies, and having that real-time data access and data federation.
Yeah, it's again, Sean, I absolutely agree with where you're coming from. From my perspective, I think there's another slightly different angle on this problem, and it's the one that often gets forgotten. It's easy to see problems with technology. We can see where data silos sit. We can see that integrations are broken. We can see that processes lag or they don't work. Often when we engage with customers, though, they don't think about the other two aspects to this three-legged stool. They don't think about their strategy and the process that sits behind that technology. So for me, that imbalance in any of those three arms is also going to cause us a different set of problems. So when you think about organizations, and I was fortunate enough to be on stage with Franz Rimmersmer a few weeks ago, and Franz put up this great slide where he showed on the left hand side of the slide organizations that are investing heavily in technology but not really addressing their strategy or their process. And then at the other end of the spectrum, organizations that are addressing strategy but can't back it up with technology and have no processes to actually deliver to customers. And there's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle there. And I think when you talk there and rightly so about people's expectations of an organization, just because I've switched channels, you should know, you should recognize it's still me. I still need the same things. And I think where organizations struggle is to bring the three aspects together in a structured way. And where I talk to organizations, what I therefore try and get them to think about is stop thinking of MarTech as a campaign engine, as something that just sits in the background popping out messages every so often to customers. And let's just hope occasionally the right message hits the right customer. Start thinking of it as an intelligence layer. Ensure you've got that consistency across those channels, but come back to that decisioning aspect of it. We are making decisions, and you talked about a really good example there of an individual interacting with a bank. That individual goes into the bank with an expectation that we are going to meet their needs. So whether I go in looking for a loan or whether I'm looking for a new credit card, That's my expectation. But the bank also has expectations. Credit cards have more value to them than loans, or loans more value than credit cards. And so decisioning gets quite complex quite quickly. And I think it's as we move forward, we've moved away from these very linear processes. These are much more like leaves and branches. They're more fractal in their approach, where customers dynamically move across things. And so when I try to get organizations to think about modernization, I always say to them, start small. Don't try boiling the ocean in day one. Start with a single use case, such as a next best offer, the type of thing you're talking about, and then scale it once you prove that there's value in what you're doing. Don't do it because you've an inherent belief that modernization is right. Do it because it's delivering value to you as an organization and you can measure and prove that value, and that helps you to decide, well, what do I need to deprecate? What technology have I got that isn't delivering, isn't relevant going forward? Where are my gaps? What are my needs? So, to support your idea, your concepts, which are all, as I say, absolutely spot on, it's just bringing those other two aspects in, the strategy and the process. And I think if you marry all three together, and that drives that modernization approach you're talking about, then you'll succeed. But if you leave the other two out, there's always a danger that you will not meet the customer's needs.
You're absolutely right in terms of, organizations need to think holistically about how they want to service their customers and how they want to deliver that value. And it becomes even more imperative in the modern age when there are, as we talked about right up front, 15,000 tool sets that can be leveraged. And there's a whole set of redundancies across marketing organizations today in terms of those capabilities. Marketing organizations as well are under increased budgetary pressures. So there's a lot of pressure to do more with less. And so it's about making that right roadmap and scaling and growing iteratively, but also making sure that as we do that, we're not incurring additional technical debt, and we're able to sunset legacy systems effectively to make sure we're driving that value and that marketing return on investment as high as possible.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, and I think it's an important message I would want to share. We've got the data governance side of it. We've talked a little bit about that in what you laid out as a plan, but there's that continuous learning loop. And I think the continuous learning loop, it's great. We got a vision. We think this is a problem. Let's apply a fix to it, but then measure it, learn from it. Is it right? Has that delivered extra ROI? Has it captured, customers that were going to churn? Has it delivered a good customer experience? It could be as simple as my net promoter score's gone up. But put those continuous learning loops in. Because I think, again, it's easy to get drawn into a technology replacement project that just becomes about IT and replacing technology. It's a Gantt chart, lots of tick boxes. We get to the end of it and we go, yes, we've replaced system A with system B. Have we actually moved forward? I like this idea that we talk about, the continuous learning through the process and adjusting and adapting in flight as we learn from those loops.
I like where you're going with that as well, because as we think about going from fragmented to connected, and we have these myriad of tools, as you said, we need to make sure as a marketing organization we're learning, we're iterating, and we're pivoting where needed. And if we're doing that across, a tool set that's 10 or 15 different tools, that becomes increasingly difficult, and it becomes increasingly difficult to take the learnings out of out of all of those various tools and make sure that they're accurate, they're consolidated, and they're at the same level of scalability. And so when we're looking at then making attributions to our different channels, to our different marketing tactics, that becomes increasingly difficult when we're dealing with a very fragmented system.
Indeed.
Right. I love the balance between data and technology, process and strategy. There has to be a balance. Otherwise, taking the example of a three-legged stool, if there isn't that level of balance, well, things topple over.
Spot on.
Love that example, Mike.
It really does, yeah, and it's sad to see it with customers who recognize the need to modernize, but then don't plan it out thoroughly and thoughtfully. They only address one aspect, and then you end up with a really slick emailing engine, but you've ignored all the other channels. You haven't got the right strategy. You're still aiming at the wrong customers. You're not really integrating with the modern needs of the customers that are trying to do business with you. So, yeah, to Sean's point, um, measurement and learning is critical. But again, you have to be really careful that you don't create a project that ends up with a whole set of technology requirements that are just to measure disconnected and inappropriately, targeted systems. So it is about balance. It is about balance across those three aspects.
Okay, so there's something I want to double click on, and it's around data.
Hmm.
So, centralizing data and reducing silos seems to be a recurring theme. So, that's where, Mike, I'll ask you, what have you found to be an effective strategy to encourage this centralization of data and reducing silos?
So it's a great question, and it's a huge challenge. So historically, and Sean and I both have probably got the grey hairs learning from this. Historically, as organisations, we used to give that problem to IT. We'd say, "Hey guys, our data's in lots of different databases. Can you just all move it into one place for us, and that'd be great, and fix it as you go along." Um, the reality is, we didn't address the ownership side of that. We left it out of the equation. We just passed the buck and said to our technology teams, "Can you fix this problem for us?" I think when you talk about reducing silos and you talk about centralizing data, you have to talk about data stewardship. You have to empower the teams that are involved in this. And you can set your central standards, you can set your criteria, and IT can be heavily involved in those processes. But ultimately, the business owners have got to be involved in stewardship of that data and ownership of that data. And as a MarTech solution, Sean's already touched on this. We need to offer a data hub that has facility like identity resolution. It unifies both online and offline data into a single golden record, customer profile, 360, whatever term you want to use. But it has to have that capability. And it also, in my view, as we go forwards, coming back to the point Sean's already made, people's expectation is now instantaneous. We shop online, we click on a button, we expect the product delivered tomorrow. So if we're going to expect real-time reaction, we have to be able to deal with real-time data, streaming data. We have to ensure that any insight we're producing stays current. We can't give the historical view that was captured from the data warehouse 2 weeks ago and expect that to be relevant to the shopper who's online doing something now. It's got to be, what are they doing now? What does that mean? Let's understand it. Let's interpret it into an insight, and then let's give a decision based on that insight. That doesn't mean you need to react immediately. I'm not suggesting that you have to you go big brother here and change the web page instantly. It's an option. But recognizing that behavior and figuring out what does that mean in terms of the journey with this customer and what my next step is, that is critical and is driven by that real-time stream. So I what I always try to do with customers is encourage adoption through transparency. When you get marketers involved in data stewardship and not just passing it to IT to fix as a problem, and they start to see results from unifying data, they buy in fast. And if they buy in, they will take ownership of it. If they take ownership of it, the situation will improve. If they just pass it to a technology team, the technology guys will do a great job of moving it all into a data lake or a data lake house, but it will still be a mess when it gets in there. It won't resolve any of the real problems.
Yeah, and I think, as we're talking about data, I think one thing for MarTech professionals and those in organizations that are responsible for building out a MarTech stack need to understand is that data is the core of the problems that we're trying to solve. It is the foundation in which everything else is built on top of. And as Mike said, that's not only just, our, customer profile data, it's also going to be demographic data that we're getting potentially from third parties. It includes that real-time streaming data. It includes the models and the propensity scores, the lifetime value scores of a customer, and those need to be updated as well as we're learning new things about those customers through their interactions and through their various contexts on various channels. And so, you know, from what we've seen in the last, 15 years, we've seen a rise of products centered around solving the data problem for marketing organizations. And, this is there's been a boon in CDPs coming to market. We've seen that evolution shift as IT organizations within companies are moving to these enterprise data warehouses. And so now what we see is, a lot of MarTech stacks still deem themselves as CDPs and still require you to take all of your data out from your centralized data store that's organizational wide and gives you access to all of your customer data in real time, and then shift that into their own marketing cloud to do those activations. And this CDP paradigm was very, very helpful for a lot of organizations, 10 years ago when enterprise data warehouses had 2-week delays in getting all of your customer data together. I've seen organizations try to make the shift at that time, 10 years ago, into modern day systems like a Hadoop, open source systems, and had a lot of trouble with that. These new cloud lakehouse technologies means that marketing organizations can offload a lot of that work, but also leverage the strength of those technologies to deliver those customer experiences. And so we're really seeing a paradigm shift from kind of what might be a CDP era into now what is a customer experience platform era. And so that is, having all of our data now centralized, we can really make sure that we're able to orchestrate a customer experience across all of these channels, leveraging that data where it is.
It does, and Sean, I think again something that we've historically spoken about, and I'd be interested in your view here. That opens up this topic of composability. As you said, historically we went to IT and we said, "Can you build us an enterprise data warehouse?" And they build one, and 2 weeks out of date with data. Then came the promise of CDP, but that was really a different type of warehouse with more intelligence, some added scoring capabilities, and different things added to it. And now we are moving into an era where composability is the key word. And we talk about, best in class, best in, but accessing things where they sit, accessing things where they currently sit, rather than let's move everything to another environment. So what do you think is the next stage, if you like, from CDP? Where do you think CDP goes next in this world of composability?
So composability, it's an interesting concept, and to me, it feels like it's one of those things where it's different no matter who you ask. And even when, we talk about CDPs, the definition today is different from when they first came to market and will differ, depending on who you ask. And so, in my view, we've kind of come full circle from, a place where we've had a very fragmented MarTech suite where we focused on a one channel at a time, to a place where we've grown into a CDP era where we've got all our data in one place. And ostensibly what we've done really is create another data silo and another tool to manage our customer data in that also creates its own latency issues. Now we're moving back and coming full circle into this world of composability, which really just means that we've got various different subsystems able to interact with each other through APIs. And composability, does bring some benefits in terms of, we are not tied to a single source system, and we've got that flexibility in terms of our data environment. But it also means that potentially we're bringing in additional overhead. We've got to manage data ETLs between different systems, data accesses. We've also got to manage API integrations. All of those across different tools means that we've got different administrators within our organizations or different partners to manage our different tool sets, as well as making sure that all of these integrations work as these tools evolve and as our customer needs and our customer experience is evolve as well. And so, when we started this, we talked about, having legacy technology, myriad of different tools serving the same purposes. And brittle integrations making it hard for organizations to deliver new customer experiences. And so, the way I would look at composability is a double-edged sword, right? One, it gives us the ability to use, as you alluded to, best-in-class tool sets and not being tied down. At the other end, it creates additional overhead. It means that we've got different teams working in different tools. We've got to manage those tools. We've got to manage those integrations, and we've got to manage the orchestration in terms of our processes. And so, this is where we're getting to in this age of composability. And I would say that as we're moving forward in time, what we're really seeing now is we're entering the customer experience platform layer, where organizations are looking to enable these customer experiences on all of their various channels from an integrated solution suite, which makes it easy for all of to deploy marketing across web channels, social media channels, emails, SMS, push notifications from a singular hub, leveraging that customer data where it lives, rather than having to migrate that to a separate tool elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's, and you've hit the nail on the head. I think what worries me about composability in its raw form are the three key things. You've got governance. How do I govern across multiple different systems with all these different connectivities, different rules, different mechanisms inside? You've then got that fateful word trust. So I've got to trust that each of these systems is doing exactly what it says and providing what it should be providing at the relevant time. And the last one, and the key one for me, particularly when it comes to customer communication, is explainability. If I get a phone call from a disgruntled person applying for a bank loan and they ask me, why have I made the decisions I've made? And I've got to go to 15, 16, 20 different systems to try and figure out how did we come to the decision we came to, and no way of tying that together, then I think we've got a problem. And I think you're spot on. Customer experience platform provides us those capabilities. It provides us governance by managing those connectivities, provides us that ability to explain why things have been done in the way they've been done. And I think most importantly, then it nurtures trust as we go forward in the world. So I think, yeah, I'd agree with you 100%. I think the experience platform is the new way to look at these things. I think that's where I'm seeing a lot of customers go.
That's where, to me, it leads to another question as we're discussing overhead and as we're discussing the example that you just threw out, Mike, of someone working at a bank, for example, needing to look at 15 different tools to give an answer to their customer. And it leads me to the train of thought around operational agility and efficiency.
Yeah,
Someone that needs to look at 15 tools to give an answer to their customer is, to me, that's a unacceptable way of operating.
yeah,
So, with the caveat that data is covered thanks to the CEP, the customer experience platform, or other tools,
yeah.
Mike, could you help me understand how does doing this allow us to unlock operational agility and efficiency?
So I think Sean and I really just touched on that, but let's expand on it. It's agility comes from removing friction.
Mm,
And the key thing is removing that friction from the area between an insight and an action. So we've got this rich data set. It's made up of all the components we've talked about. We now have it in an experience platform. From that, we need to generate some form of insight, but not just an insight, actionable insight. It has to be something that can be acted on. So, for example, if you're connecting an analytic to that data, that analytic has to produce a result that you're going to execute on. So, a propensity to do something in a certain way or a propensity to churn, then being acted on. And this is where I think we start to lean into the benefits that AI is beginning to deliver to market. So, AI optimization, for example, can be deployed to continuously tune offers, look at timings, look at channels, work out which channels are delivering at what time of day. Is it right to send the message to a busy mum delivering Johnny to school at 9 o'clock in the morning? Probably not. Maybe at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when she's got Johnny back and he's doing his homework. Bit of a joke there, obviously, but if she's doing his homework and she's then got a bit of downtime, maybe that's the right time to deliver. Should that be email? Should it be in app? Should it be another? Should it be WhatsApp? Should it be a different channel? And AI is helping us to optimize at individual level because it can scale much more than we can as human beings. And it leads us towards that enablement of always on marketing model instead of this campaign calendar model that I talked about at the top of this. And for me, this recognition of needing this always on campaign model or this always on marketing model and this ability to couple tooling like AI. And I'm not suggesting for one moment it's going to take over the role of marketers. I think these are very strong support tools to enable marketers to scale and remove that friction. So for me, it is about removing friction between insights and action.
I've personally been involved in launching, next best offer, next best action, pilot programs at large institutions. And there's, sometimes, you know, a disconnect within an organization to becoming more customer centric versus, product teams operating in a silo to deliver marketing communications on an ad hoc basis. And when we want to enable these always on strategies, we really need to make sure that we're aligning the whole organization, right? Product teams, IT teams, marketing teams. And we really need to shift into thinking about every customer touch point, every marketing tactic, and every communication, whether that's from frontline staff, call center staff, or through our traditional marketing channels. Every customer touch point is a marketing opportunity. It is an opportunity to build brand trust, develop customer loyalty, and lead that customer down through conversion to what we think their next best action is going to be. And doing so is going to increase that customer lifetime value. And it's also going to mean that in the long term, we're servicing our customers and we're going to be their trusted partners, in the long term. And so when we think about how to drive that operational efficiency and agility, we really need to come back to what we're actually solving for as marketing organizations, right? And that is delivering value to our customers and really keeping that customer experience very high. So what we really need to do is we need to make sure that we've got a unified customer data across all of our different channels and all of our different lines of business. And we've talked about that now quite a bit. From there, we need to make sure that we've got access to that data in real time. Not just me, as an analytics professional potentially, or as a marketer able to query that data, but all of my different subsystems that are going to be able to generate those communications need to have access to that data in real time. From there, we're looking at, as we alluded to, the customer experience platform paradigm that we're now in. We need to make sure that we've got tools that support API-based integrations to all of our different channels. That includes websites, mobile, point of sale systems, contact center systems, etc. We need to have integrations from all of these different systems to make sure that they're leveraging that offer decisioning tool in the background and delivering consistent messaging and communications across all of these different channels. From there, we also need to make sure that we've got journey orchestrations that can tap into all of these different systems via those API connections. And so that's where that customer experience platform really comes into play. It's going to provide us with a centralized offer management system and that real-time offer arbitration. And so now we've got a whole organization centered around delivering the right customer experience and the best customer experience and making sure that that's orchestrated and consistent across all of our different channels. And so we've got a whole organization, not just in marketing, but in IT and product and so forth, dedicated to providing the best customer experience possible. And we've got tools aligned and working together to make sure that this organization can run lean and deliver that customer experience at scale with the right automations in place.
This has been a fantastic discussion, guys. We've got a couple minutes left, so I'll open the floor to any topics that either of you would like to discuss uh, on anything maybe we haven't covered or maybe you want to cover a bit more.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. I think you're right. It is a fantastic discussion, and um, Sean and I could probably go on for hours and hours talking about these topics. But I think for our listeners, I'd say there are three thoughts I would say if you're going into a modernization process or you're thinking that modernization is something you need to do. Number one is remember, think of that MarTech as the bridge between your marketing ambition and operational reality. So the MarTech is there for a reason, but it is only one leg of that three-legged stool I keep on about. And as I've already said, for me, companies that succeed in modernization programs are the ones that have an organizational capability. It's not a procurement exercise. It's not, we need to replace system A, so let's get procurement in. Let's go through an RF process, multiple stages, whittle it down, features and functions. That's not the way to tackle modernization. It is about what organizational capabilities do I need? How do I deliver those? And that's the way you should be looking at it. And then the last thing is for me is think about those connections. Think about data, decisioning, and people, as Sean's been talking about, and think about how you couple those with strategy, process, technology. Because for me, ultimately, bringing those together is what unlocks the customer true value to you, your end customers.
So, as a takeaway, I want to cover two different aspects as kind of closing takeaways. Firstly, when we are considering modernization, let's ensure that we are covering what strategies we actually need for digital maturity. And so one, that's going to be ensuring that we've got the front door right. And when we're talking about the front door, the digital front door especially, we're talking about the web application and the mobile application. Are we able to leverage signals from our customers' browsing behavior on these digital assets that are going to be very important? Are customers coming onto our site and bouncing right off of the first page? Are we able to identify clear, customer experience roadblocks where customers are reaching a certain point in the conversion journey and then dropping off? And are we able to identify which segments are the most successful and which paths are driving customers to conversion? We need to take those learnings and make sure that we are iterating and building out the right digital assets in the right front door so we're able to service our customers. Second of all, we need to be thinking about personalization and pre-approved offers for customers, right? So we need to make sure that we're understanding our customers. We need to understand what's relevant to them. And we also need to have the ability to ingest real-time signals to be able to pivot that messaging uh, when appropriate. We need to make sure that we are having a cross-channel customer engagement strategy in place. What that means is one interaction record, consistent handoffs, and centralized decisioning. And then, as we just talked about, we need to ensure that we've got the right automation in place. And a lot of that is going to be dependent on AI. Can we have, application rescue capabilities in place, or, cart abandonment, for example? Are we able to leverage the right signals from our customers on digital channels, but also offline channels? Are we able to deliver the next best action and pivot that action when appropriate based on our customers' real-time interaction signals? And so these are the strategies, and you need the right tool sets and the right mindsets across the organization to make sure you're able to action on those, take the learnings and insights, and then improve and iterate those customer experiences based on those insights that those tools are bringing back for you.
I love it, Sean. Tool sets and mindsets.
Absolutely right. And I think everything Sean says there. You think about it this way. We often optimize campaigns on the idea of activity, but actually, what Sean is saying is don't optimize on activity, its impact and customer outcome, and that's really what we should be thinking about.
This has been a fantastic discussion. On behalf of Mike and Sean, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about some of the SaaS solutions we've discussed, or would like to learn a bit more about Munvo, please reach out to us with the details in the invite. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.